Howdy. Welcome back. One of the streamers I work with, he found one last night, and I went back and I reviewed the video today, and I got that one fixed. So I'm back down in here playing the same mission to make sure I get everything else. Trying to make sure all the story missions are functioning. Then I'm gonna also work on some of the procedural missions once I get my rep back up with one of the factions. Procedural missions is really where it's at, because those are the ones where it's like supposed to be different every single time. I barely had a chance to really test any of that stuff, but working on it. I don't play my own game enough. Some developers have a problem playing their own game too much. I don't play my own game enough. Dude, that's so for real. Like, it's not even funny. There's always something. I'm trying to do some of the procedural stuff that I'm doing. Like, I've got dynamic rigs that propagate only after they've been spawned into an environment so that they conform to the terrain. Like, that stuff, like you can never test that enough. Period. Ever. Another thing I do need to test out here. I'm getting weird flickering on the lighting. Not quite sure what it is, and it only happens in first person mode. Go back in third person mode, no problem. Do have different settings. I'd have to double check on them to see if maybe there's something in there that would conflict. Scared you? How so? Oh, come on. I was right by my spawn point. I mean, for me, I think the technical name is thalassophobia or something like that, but I just have like a thing with like deep water, like not being able to see. Come on, man. Aliens, yeah. That's a pretty good one. I don't know how I spawned down here. There is a way up. Alien's a pretty good movie. Been a while since I've watched it. Falling down into this lower area is a little bit of a drag because there isn't much down there right now. But it's part of my philosophy of no bottomless pits. If you fall down somewhere, it usually leads somewhere else. I'm not going to go through them now, but let's just say that there are pathways into other areas that aren't exactly visible. Just because there's a dark corner over there doesn't mean there's nothing. And then I fell off because I was looking at the chat. Ah. Yes, detail density. There's two things, or two things that I think modern space sci-fi games kind of lack. Like, you go play Elite Dangerous. I played Elite Dangerous for a few years, and it just kind of grinded away at me how like empty that game could feel at times. And even No Man's Sky to some extent. Although No Man's Sky feels less empty and just more shallow these days. Even with all the work they've done. They've done a lot of work. It's just so big. Here I wanted to try and like shrink things down and put as much into it as I can. Like, I've already got one quest chain that's kind of locked behind faction reputation. That gives you a boost to faction rep, and then there's another one that's locked behind, I think it's just player progression in general. That gives you it's like an artifact quest or an artifact weapon quest. It gives you a silenced hand cannon. But that stuff you have to like play the game and like get into the game world to like get into. Density of detail and depth of interaction. When the things I do in my games have ripple effects. Just to give you an example, what I'm kind of getting at here. In this game specifically, see these little eyeball points here? These things, I call them blind spots. Under the hood they're called something else, but here in the UI, I call them blind spots because they're places where you don't have visibility. You can't see into those places unless you go there and physically see, like, look around. These are significant, as well as these derelicts, because they basically follow the same rules, but they're a little bit larger. These are significant because they have the possibility of changing hands. There's a higher chance that whoever owns the nearby point of interest is going to take control of it, and they'll have the primary spawn over there. There's also a chance that one of their enemies will spawn there too. There's also a chance it'll be wild animals instead. Additionally, there's a chance that a opposing faction to whoever owns that spot can spawn there as well. Just randomly. So you could have two primary factions that are opposing there. So when you show up, there could be an active firefight going on. And what this is designed to do is simulate active patrols moving through the area. Because it would be really intensive to try and like have actual patrols moving through the area in a meaningful volume. Instead, I found a way to essentially simulate that. might be bugged. We'll see here though. Faction, like the faction lore and like story stuff is something I'm still kind of working on. I've just recently, just like within the last 3 or 4 months, gotten factions fighting each other. So I've gotten some faction missions as as testing tools set up, but I don't have like deep lore on all of the factions. There's one faction that's like a religious cult that worships the aliens as like elder gods or whatever. There's a little bit of lore around that, but other than that, there's still quite a bit of freeform kind of stuff for a writer to come in and contribute if they want to. I guess the best way to look at it. I've actually tried to work with a couple of writers. People need money. They got bills they got to pay. It takes time to really sit down and work on any of this stuff, and it's hard to work on something like this as a side gig unless you spend months preparing and getting onboarded. And I've got somebody who's kind of doing that right now in their spare time, but do what they can. Alright, so we have completed that mission, so it didn't bug out like I thought it would. In that case, but I probably do need to update that so that that waypointer comes back here to Sidonia, or to the Vigor's Refuge. Look at the intel. So this is a newer save file, so it's a little less developed. There's actually a reason why we got so many bad movies. If you go back and you look at all the writing teams for a bunch of these movies, a significant number of them are written by people in their 20s. Now, I don't know about you, but from my experience, most people in their 20s don't have a whole lot of, and it's not to be insulting or anything, but most people in their 20s they don't have a whole lot of life experience. And for a lot of these writers going into like Marvel and stuff, not only are they young, but they spent most of their time writing fan fiction on the internet. So you're getting a young person who has a thoroughly unrealistic idea of how the world works because they live in one of the most privileged countries in the world. They wrote fan fiction there most of their life. And I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, because like, this is America, the United States, where that's kind of like we brag that people can do that, like we've got it so good that people can do that. But at the same time, like, that's probably not who you want doing the writing for your movies. Oh, Orion Incorporated has issued one contract. Go hop over there. I mean, there's what I've seen is like a lot of the younger people as like they're moving in as the older people are retiring. So a lot of the people who wrote movies like Apocalypse Now, like those people are out of the industry now. If they are in the industry, they're probably doing a different job, like lead writer or something like that. to give a shit anymore, basically. And from those guys' perspective, oh, you're gonna make a few bad movies before you get anywhere. Because that's what they did. They made bad movies. A bunch of the guys in Hollywood went to the Roger Corman School. What? Roger Corman Film School. Roger Corman only ever did bad movies. Every once in a while, he'd do a great movie and make a whole freaking bunch of money, and then he'd be broke again, making bad movies that didn't make anything. Jack Nicholson worked for Roger Corman for like 10 years before he finally made it in Hollywood. Oh man, somebody got blown up over here. What in the world? Let's stay out of the runway. They launch fighters. Oh yeah. Games writing was always kind of like, you know, cheesy, over the top, very much like 80s action film kind of like level of writing. Oh my god, why did my performance tank all of a sudden? Not entirely sure what that's all about. Oh, what's wrong? I need to restart. It does not appear to be letting up. Give a couple more seconds. Really like to know what the problem is. Might be that over there. No idea. I've not read that one. I'd have to check it out. Yeah, it looks like it's not gonna let up. No biggie. We can restart pretty quickly. Interesting to know why it did that. Need better debugging tools to post build. I'll have to check out that saving the cat. When I went to college, it was mostly focused on like learning some of the technology and tools required for game design, and of course, game design theory. There wasn't really a whole lot of writing involved, as far as like story writing. Most games, as you pointed out, most games don't have very complex stories. That's done. It's gonna be a little bit before this thing gets fired up. About 20 minutes right now before this thing gets heated up. This is another thing I have to work on. I have to get all of these skills hooked up to stuff. Some of them are. Like, I think rifles are hooked up. But I think most of these still need work. Dude. I need to fix this. You shouldn't be able to do this. Right now, to level any of this stuff up, you have to find skill books. However, that's probably going to change because I do want to implement some form of learning thing, like where you, like the more you do something, the more you gain points in that skill. Obviously, if you're a mercenary, you're probably gonna know how to use a rifle. So you start out with that pretty high. And then the other ones are like fabrication. Like this is like if I've in my design document I have this broken down to where like mercenary is your primary job. So by default you fall into a class that has rifles as their primary skill. So like a mercenary or a soldier is going to have rifles as their primary skill. From there, I've got fabrication as a secondary skill because I chose like I think it was crafting as a secondary skill. So that would be like that would be like my mercenary skill, my primary sort of skill set there. And of course I've got cardio, and then computers from other things that I selected during character creation. I do have the archive in here. This is some of the lore that I have. Some of this is working. Some of it is hidden because you don't have, or I don't have the token for it yet. So I'd have to go and learn, find out where that information is before I get the unlock token for it. Please. Big boy landed. Then there's the HVT list. These guys, that one's locked, that one's locked. First you have to find out who the target is. Once you know who the target is, then you have to go get to find the mission to assassinate them. I haven't played Starfield, believe it or not. Comms, like here, I can, at any point in time I want, I can come over here to factions, or open up the factions menu, and any faction I have already contacted and run missions for, I can just contact them directly and be like, yo, what do you got on hand for missions? And I can accept the mission remotely. And eventually, you come over here to comms, you'll be able to talk to people remotely. None of this. This is one of the things that's always driven me freaking nuts about RPGs that are sci-fi. Oh yeah, it's a sci-fi game. You can talk halfway across the universe, but nope, you have to go talk to this person by traveling all the way to their location. It's always just driven me freaking nuts. It's sci-fi. We've already established that I can talk to somebody like on the other side of the galaxy with a device. Why am I having to walk all the way to the mission giver? First I gotta fly there, then I have to take a ground vehicle, and then I have to get out of the ground vehicle and walk up the mountain. See, I've got 6,400 balloons. Go grab a jetpack. Seems like a pretty good spend of money. That's the weapon store. Let's see here. Go ahead and just use these up. Those are skill data pads for skills, and I should sell my loot here while I've got it. Right now you can sell this stuff to anybody. Eventually some items will, like these alien artifacts, you'll have to find a black market dealer to buy those. That also got me a bit of extra bit of coin there. Now, I can get the jump pack if I want it. Or I can get the rocket pack. It's only 4,000. Plans on money inflation. So I'm trying to wrap up character artwork right now, and then I'm going to be working on vehicles. When I go work on vehicles, part of that is going to be looping in or tying in all of the logistics. So no logistics will move on the map unless the vehicle is moving them. And that's going to eventually translate to, oh, well, we've been blockaded for 2 weeks now. Our supplies are running low. If you want to buy something, it's going to be an arm and a leg. From that town, yeah. You want to buy it from our town, yeah, it's going to cost you. We've been blockaded for 2 weeks now. We can't get anything through the valley. Can't get anything over the mountain, through the air. That sort of thing. So, yeah. That's all going to come into play, but it's also going to be all tied to the environment, because, like, my whole thing with some of these games is, like, the logistics lines matter, right? Like, that's the way we did things when I was in the military. Like, you're out, like, I don't talk about my military experience a whole lot. I didn't really have a good experience when I was in the military. It's in ways that most people wouldn't understand right off the bat. So, with that in mind, like, I just don't talk about it. But my job when I was in the military, I was infantry, and for like the last 4 years I was recon infantry, and part of that job is like you're not just out there scouting, right? You're infantry. Your job is to go out and fight the enemy on top of scouting. So part of that is going out and sabotaging infrastructure, booby trapping roadways to blow up logistics, assassinating key figures, like all those movies where you saw dudes crawling behind enemy lines, getting into firefights and having like evac because they're like outnumbered behind enemy lines shit. Yeah, that's the type of shit that I did. Only we didn't really do it as hard as like guys in Vietnam did because that's just not the type of war that we were fighting. We were fighting a counterinsurgency, so we still did some of that, just not to the extent that the guys like out in Vietnam or Bosnia or Kosovo or any of that those places. Um, so I've had some sniper training, but I didn't like the sniper training I had was like me and the dudes in the unit, like basically training out in the field. That was it. I didn't like go to sniper school, although that I had people pushing me to go to all sorts of different schools, sniper school, ranger freaking school, all sorts of stuff. I had no interest in it. I wanted to do my 6 years, get out, go to college. Chose the infantry because I told myself if I'm gonna join the army, I'm gonna like get the whole like the real experience. So I got to like ride in helicopters, and ran a few missions with Spec Ops and Spec 4. But it's not like I know any of those guys personally. Like I didn't hang out with them. We just ran like missions together. Yep, absolutely. MP, yep. Yeah, we used to give our MPs a hard time. I'm not gonna lie. But they were out there right alongside us doing patrols. I know MPs that was, they got firefights, got blown up. Oh, in Germany? I don't know if I had I know we ran with the the Czechs for a little bit, the Czechoslovakian or Slovakia. I don't remember. I think they changed their name since I joined since I was in the military. But yeah, I think the Czechs were there. Some of the Norwegian, I think the Norwegians had a unit that we ran with when I was over there for a little while. I'm gonna get this rocket pack here, and we're gonna get new armor because I got the money for it. None of these icons are gonna match the armor that you're gonna see, so I'm just gonna warn you that right now because I'm still working on replacing all that stuff. What are you doing, kitty cat? She's gonna meow her head off. Listen. Yep, already started. Oh, I hear you. Yep, it's just so horrible, isn't it? Oh, there's just not enough food in that bowl that's already filling over, isn't there? I need to work on those armor sets. I know that's the wrong helmet. I can tell you that right now. Now we're gonna sell the old armor. Sam's going off. Sounds like somebody's flying overhead. I'm gonna keep that. Birds. There's some like bat-looking flyers that fly around. I don't know about birds. I mean, my cat's walking around here. I might hear her. There. Somehow I ended up with 97,000. I'll have to look into that. Yes, I do want to buy some things. Let's buy some grenades. Buy about 20 grenades. And let's buy a sniper rifle. And we're gonna buy this cannon. And I'm gonna get a proper sidearm. Freaking Christmas. This is a target designator for calling in fire. Yeah, I think that looks good for the time being. What do you want? Whiny little furball? You just have to come out and do this now, don't you? Tell you what. Let's go. Let's go jack a fighter. Exactly where to find one. These points can be cleared out, but they will respawn later down the line. They typically spawn more as well. Stick around too long. There's a sand site here. Yep, we already got hit. I'm gonna get shot down out here. Yep. Cannon's going off. I got SAMs and gun towers tracking my ass. I totally hit the wrong button there. Let's go check that out. That shit just happened right in fucking front of us. This is where I need a salvage site set up, right? Because you come over here and salvage shit off of us. I did watch Firefly. I am hoping they do not get the Stargate treatment that has been popular recently. Where somebody's like, oh, we're gonna make another Firefly season, and oh, it's canceled because of reasons. And I'm just like, I'm tired of it. So, I'm trying not to get my hopes up for what I'm hearing rumors that there's going to be a new season of Firefly. I'm not getting my hopes up for it after the Stargate debacle. of town. I need to add a grilled scorpion tail. It's literally just this. Damn. I've heard so many like mixed things about some of the continuations. Like some people love them, some people are just like, eh. It just doesn't have the same feel. There's an old crash site around here somewhere. I currently live in Minnesota, but I don't necessarily like stay in one spot for very long. I might be here for a year and then I'm leaving again, usually to go stay with somebody else or help them. Like I went and helped a friend of mine out in Colorado for a while. Then I went and helped my parents get their house ready for sale down in Arkansas. I've been out to Illinois to stay with a friend of mine, help him get back up on his feet. And I started out, like when I started working on this, I was living in North Carolina at the time.
Good line of sight. Initiating fire mission. 30 seconds to target. Rounds incoming.
About got me with the grenades. I always do this. Yeah, as somebody who's like born and raised in the United States, like when I was stationed over in Baumholder, I got a chance to like I wouldn't say I got a whole lot of chance to travel around Germany, but I got a chance to kind of like I went to Dusseldorf and Frankfurt, stayed over at Mainz for a night, and one of the things that I kind of learned was like Germany's not just like yes, it is one nation, like essentially Germany, which is one nation, but Europe as a whole has a very rich history of various conflicts that result in various forms of displacement. So, like, it's not as clean cut as one might think just like looking at a map as an American on the other side of the planet. It's kind of a similar situation in some respects here in the United States, because like there are still parts of the US where people still speak French from like when the original French exiles were sent down to Louisiana from Canada. What they called the Acadian French. And then you have there's like a town of Germans, people who still speak German from like the 1800s down in Texas. I think they actually speak a very specific, I think it was like Bavarian, like a Bavarian dialect or something like that. I don't know if there's anything else here I can do. I need to fix that. I need to make those things more right. Absolutely. There are absolutely no clean cuts. Not with history, not at all. I found out, like, my dad's side of the family, like, nobody really knew too much about their history, and they had always had this claim that some of their ancestors were, like, part indigenous Native American Indian, and, nobody had any paperwork to kind of like back this up, so we just kind of like took it on word of mouth for a really long time. But with the recent, and we still don't have like defining paperwork, but with the recent improvements in like large data set accumulation, we found that almost all of the people who claim to have native ancestry have no like historical documentation for most of their family before them. So like, we've got people where we can track where they're coming over from Europe, and then we've got people who are like the same people who are claiming that they have native ancestry from like 400, like 300, 400 years ago, because the English side of my family came over here in the 1600s. It was like 1640s. Most of them went out to the frontier almost as soon as they got here. One guy worked building roads into the frontier for like, I think several months before he was allowed to stop. Like, it was part of like his indentured servitude or something like that. It was the deal, like he had to come over here, build so many miles of road with cut, like what they called corduroy road, where they would cut the trees and fell them across the road. And they had to build so many miles of road into the frontier before they were allowed to basically go free and do whatever they wanted. So that was one of my ancestors. Another one apparently ran with a gentleman by the name of Henry Skaggs as a Virginia long hunter. So almost my entire family is like old frontier settlers, like living out in the Kentucky frontier in the 1700s and earlier in some cases, and all the way down to the Georgia frontier, Alabama. I think it was Carolina, the Carolina frontier at that point in time. And some of them got, because they had native ancestry, some of them were caught up in the forestry rules and stuff like that. So we were always wondering, like, why didn't they go west with a tribe or whatever? And apparently, the ancestors that we have are people who married into like European families. But this was all like 250, 300 years ago, so like nobody cares. It's so old. I certainly don't remember anything other than like the story that passed down. And there aren't many of those anymore. Pretty much. I have a friend of mine, he's Irish. He makes a joke about Conan O'Brien learning that he was like 100% Irish, and someone was like, yeah, that just means you're inbred or something like that. I think it was a joke, but like the number of people who have clean-cut ethnicity is, at some point it's probably comes down more so to like cultural, like what are you invested in culturally? Worn out on it in my old age. We're waiting for Vickers. Who do we have good standing with? We can go run missions for Titan Line. Titan Line has a contract faction hop. Oh, he started a mission. Initializing contract. Oh, captain my captains. Not sure. I'm almost 40, man. Yeah, I'm almost 40 myself. I gotta get over to that dungeon, I guess. I think I might need to fix a bug. But this is good. This is what this is for. Find all the stuff. Millennials for the win. I wish I was more millennial. I mean, I'm age-wise, I fall into the millennial bracket, but I had the misfortune of having boomer parents. So, like, I'm 38. My parents are about to die. My old man fell down and broke two of his ribs just falling down the other day. Or a few weeks ago, actually. Chasing the dog, fell down on the grass, broke two ribs. Change my rifle. Change my primary. '90s were pretty epic. There were a lot of things that I enjoyed about the '90s. Ha. I honestly didn't get into '90s cartoons that much. I grew up in a very religious family. I wasn't really allowed to watch any of that stuff when I was growing up. I had a very non-traditional upbringing here in the United States. Like, my parents were deeply religious. My father had a very different kind of background. Like, I grew up with a very different situation. I didn't even like watch, like most of the people I know saw Alien when they were kids. I didn't see Alien until I was in my 20s. I'm not very much religious today. I've studied various religions, and I have some opinions that probably most religions would not appreciate, but I just generally keep it to myself. But no, I was raised in a very religious family that, like, at one point in my life, Star Wars was off limits. So, if that tells you anything. The cartoons that I remember most fondly, because we got, I think, well, by the time I was a teenager, my parents had loosened up. Of course, they were also divorcing it. George Carlin, yeah, I know of George Carlin. I got to watch George Carlin later in life as well. It was one of those guys where, like, I kind of knew about him from hearing other people talk about him, but I didn't get to watch it until really, like, watch George Carlin until I was in my 20s. There was a point in my life where the Force was, like, the Force, Jedi and Sith using Force was basically evil magic. So. Busted. We'll solve that later. Or after I get done with this. Yep. Harry Potter was off limits too. Yep. I'm that kid. I'm that kid. I grew up in that home. So. Pretty much. I think the thing that people miss with that whole thing is like Harry Potter was literally like built off of the English mythos. So like you've got at least the entire island of England buying it. Like it doesn't matter if Americans boycott it. J.K. Rowling probably would have been happy if it only ever made success in friggin' England or the UK. The fact that it went beyond that is just the icing on the cake. Like it was, and whatever anybody thinks about her opinions, I mean, she's obviously had a lot of success with it. So. She's one of those people with like, she makes both sides angry, depending on how far back and forth on the spectrum you want to go. What's the matter, kitty cat? That water platform provides a significant supply of hydrocarbons to the faction that owns it. That's something I need to program into the AI. They're going to pursue points of interest that are going to help them fulfill resource deficits. Smart woman? Yeah, if you're smart, you'll never pick a side. That's my opinion. What's the old Treebeard saying? I'm on no one's side because nobody's on my side. You side with like a political group, you're basically cannon fodder for them. I don't even remember the last time I voted in one of our national elections. You should probably go out and vote. Especially after like the way Afghanistan and Iraq were managed into the ground. Kind of how I feel about it. There's just not really a whole lot of good leadership all around in any direction anymore. The general feeling that I have. That's a feeling. Some say that it's a fact. It's just a feeling. I stay out of politics, stay out of the culture war. Like, mostly I stay out of the culture war because I think a lot of the people fighting it are just dumb, ignorant people. Like, I heard somebody talking about using Achilles as like the mythos of Achilles and like trying to make the argument that Achilles was like a great example of what a soldier should be. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, okay, like Achilles routinely bucked authority and then openly defied his people's gods and like in front of like leadership and stuff. So like, I mean, if that's your role model for soldiers, I'm not sure how long it's gonna last. Cause, like, I always thought the whole thing with the Greeks is like learn from their mistakes. They're not around anymore. The Greeks as they were in the mythos, anyways. Which, from what I understand, are really the Mycenaeans, or the Achaeans, as they were actually called for their time. Who owns this space? Looks like it is currently overrun by wildlife. It's always so hard to like know, because like some of the things that we consider like normal over here, other people consider like horrifying in places like Europe. And some of the things that Europe does are things that we would consider horrifying. Like, I'm not sure how many nations over in Europe still have mandatory military service, but like over here in the United States, like, that's a big no-no. Like, people have to sign up for the draft when they turn 18 mostly out of principle. And I guess if things got too bad that we would probably do it, but generally speaking, requiring mandatory military service is like a huge no-no. Yeah, absolutely. I'm all about being transparent on like issues and stuff. Definitely. I think that's probably like one of the biggest issues we have over here is like nobody actually reads policy. So even if you vote, you're voting against people who don't actually read anything. Like even some of our own politicians don't read the bills that they vote on. Like it's pretty awful. But that's something that's kind of been like a phenomenon for like the past 20 years. Like the whole reason there's any kind of UFO disclosure is because somebody didn't read the bill that the clause was put into. So somebody put in a clause that like the United States federal government had X amount of time to disclose all information regarding UFOs and extraterrestrials, and it seriously made it into a bill. And I'm the type of person, as much as I love sci-fi, I have yet to be convinced that there's any real evidence for aliens that have actually visited this planet. But I also don't believe in angels or demons, so. There's a lot of things I think we accept as like supernatural like fact, when in reality, like, no, Hercules did not stick his sword into the ground and shear off a section of the Greek coastline. What probably happened is part of the Greek coastline fell off into the ocean, and then when Hercules and his boys were drunk, they all got to talking about all the crazy stuff that they did, and somehow concocted this story about how Hercules shoved his sword into the ground and sheared off a portion of the Greek coastline. So, I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, I've literally watched dudes lie about things just to get girls. So, I mean, who's to say Hercules didn't lie about the pillars of Hercules just to try and get some chick? I mean, that's like, you know, how much do you want to believe? How much do you want to believe as fact, and how much do you want to believe as metaphor? And how much of it is actually like perspective? I was listening to something on the Bronze Age collapse, and one guy was talking about how, like, there's evidence to show that most of the land of Canaan would have been conquered before the Israelites had moved in. Like, there were raids in that area from a major conflict that basically left Egypt on the brink of collapse. Left them on the actual start of a very slow decline. But, you know, this is YouTube History Channel and stuff, so it's hard to know how much of it's true. How much of it can actually be verified. I mean, I'm kind of trusting that Eric Klein, the guy on YouTube, you know, knows what he's talking about. He's written books, he's gotten published, but so too have other less genuine people. So, you know, who do you believe? I don't necessarily believe everything that Graham Hancock has been selling, but I do think it's interesting how he has been attacked for even suggesting that the history might be different. Not that it's wrong, but that it might have more that came before than we thought. Somebody was over here shooting. Interesting story. There was a dude who was like a flat earther or whatever, who like wanted to try and prove that the earth was flat, and he contacted the company that I was working for one day. It was a dude who I don't even know his name. And he told us that he was getting ready to launch a rocket in the next like year or two to prove his theory that the earth was flat, and that he wanted us to build an app to help him manage his rocket launch. Now, I didn't even know that this was even a thing at the time, right? I'm like working my job. I got out of college working my job at my small little startup company that I got on with. And we're getting this guy calling us, asking us to build, because there's like, they build custom software sometimes on the side to help pay the bills. This guy comes up out of the blue asking for us to launch, or work on an app for him to manage his rocket launch. And I start looking into this guy, and I'm like, because he didn't tell us that he thought the earth was flat, right? He just said, hey, I want to look into this rocket launch, or I want to look at building the app to manage my rocket launch. And my boss comes and tells me about this. I start looking into this guy. I'm like, walk over to my boss, like, dude, this guy thinks the earth is flat. This guy thinks he's going to launch a rocket, and he's going to prove the earth is flat. And my boss is a pilot, right? So it makes it even better. Come to find out, this dude tried to launch his rocket and kills himself because the parachute or whatever system that he had rigged up to bring his butt back down to the surface, like, it failed, and he ends up dying in the rocket crash. This is the moment when he dies, is the moment I find out that he's like a prominent flat earther. Like, dude, people know this dude who are a part of like the flat earth community. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, this dude, I almost helped this guy kill himself, and I'm glad I did. A part of me is glad I didn't. Spawns are disappearing from here. Where'd they go? Let's go see if it does it somewhere else. So, yeah. That's I don't know what to tell you, man. I mean, like, I've lived in some of the more disparate regions of the United States, and I can tell you from personal experience that our education system hasn't always been the best. I roll up on these dudes, they're fighting bugs out here. Where? I don't know what they're fighting now. I gotta work on AI, man. It's really what it comes down to. It's America, man. It's all about freedom over here. You want to waste your life on trying to prove a stupid theory? You can do that. And sometimes that has yielded some pretty awesome outcomes. Every once in a while, somebody kills themselves. Self-deletes, I guess is what it's called. I don't know what the kids are saying these days. I don't even worry about monetization on YouTube anymore. You sneeze wrong and make somebody mad on the internet these days. That it? These points will reset after a set amount of time, so... And they're supposed to reset when I'm not there, but it looks like it might be bugging out on me again. Jeez, that's hilarious though. That's actually kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of funny. 0.3% of German, because they don't refuse to accept German passports. They think they're in the old German Empire. It's hard, man. Like my family, they lived out in the wilderness for like, I think my mother's side of the family lived in the wilderness in Kentucky for 7 generations, and we only know this because we went out to where the old home site was, out in the wilderness up in Appalachia, and found where all 7 of my great-great-great-great-grandparents or whoever, 7 generations of the Hatton family were buried right next to each other on the same plot of land. And you can track all the ages across, like, I think it went all the way back into the 1700s. So... And when you live like that for so long, it's hard for some people to give it up. I've seen quite a bit of the American lifestyle. I've had a chance to live in the suburbs. I've had a chance to... I can't do the cities. I can't live in the cities. That's one... I've visited the cities, but I can't live in them. A lot of people come over here, you know, they're here for the cities, and as an American born here, I can't stand to live in them. I live in a fairly decent-sized town now. I think it's got maybe 300,000 people in it, and I'm looking to get back out into the country. Like, for me, the perfect setup would be like a home out in the country with the internet and a home studio built into it, so I can keep working and maybe have like a yard for the animals to run around in, and the kids, because I got one of my founders. He's got a kid. Everybody needs a yard to have run around in barefoot, or a park. If you got a park, that works too. Specific location over here. I want to come down here. God, it's been a while since I've been down here. Just get a chance to look at some of the thicker jungle areas. And my dad's side of the family was from northeast Arkansas. My mother's side of the family was from southwest Ohio. Of course, they had moved there from Kentucky. But I grew up traveling up and down the Mississippi for quite some time. Mostly on road trips between two locations. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I feel about it here. Like, if you're not afraid to drive an hour to work, yeah, you can totally find a house out in the country. That's kind of like, I've driven up to an hour and a half to get to work before. When I lived out in the country, yeah. Hour and a half. It's like that's like normal over here. I mean, of course, everybody would like to have the house that's like out in the country, surrounded by trees, and 15 minutes away from the department store, right? But now you're asking to pay for a premium in a place that should technically be, by right of like necessity, should probably be high density housing if it's going to be high density, if it's going to be any housing at all. Like, I mean, I guess if you really want to live in a community where there's a department store 15 minutes away while you're trying to like also raise animals, I mean, I guess you could build that, but you'd have to convince somebody it's a good idea if it doesn't already exist. Housing here is actually cheaper, because I typically live in apartments, and from my experience, housing here is typically cheaper than apartments. So like an apartment here in the United States, a friend of mine lives in the Chicago area. He pays $2,000 US a month, just about, to rent a one-bedroom apartment within 45 minutes distance, or 45 minutes driving distance of the city of Chicago. And it is hands down one of the most obscene things I've ever heard anybody say to me. $2,000 for a one-bedroom apartment is obscene. spider in here. I would say rent is probably worse for the average American at this point. But that also kind of depends on where you live. Like, I've lived in places where rent for a one-bedroom apartment was like $600, which is closer to where I live now. But if you live in a place like Chicago, you're probably going to spend $2,000 for a one-bedroom apartment. Right? That's like, dude, that's like so important. Like, if you spend all of your energy doing something you don't like, and then you come home after a long drive, like, the last thing you want to do is, like, spend any more energy of your day, even doing something that you love. At some point, you have to tune out. Like, I think the hardest I was able to go as far as working on development stuff was like during the very first like 3 years of working on Frontiers Reach 1. I was like, I'm not even kidding, there were days I was waking up, rolling literally out of my bed into my computer chair, working until I was basically ready to go to bed, and then I would roll back into bed out of my computer chair and do it all over again. And I worked like that for like, there was a point where it was like 18 hours a day. I'm not even joking about that. I was literally working 18 hours a day at one point. it was rough the first like two years, and a lot of it came down to I was kind of like freaking out because like it kind of made me really mad because I had people like trying to hit me up for money, and I'm like, dude, I'm living in someone's basement, I'm on the brink of homelessness, and I'm just doing what I can to try and get something for portfolio put together. Because when COVID hit, because I started this in 2020, started actual work on game development in 2020. A lot of it was just planning before that, but when COVID hit, a bunch of my roommates left, or all of my roommates left to go be with family, and so I was like, well, I'm stuck here, I don't have anywhere, like I can't afford to live here alone. So I ended up living in my then studio director's basement for a few months before moving back to Arkansas to stay with family for a while. But yeah, I had moments where I was like literally on the brink of homelessness, and people were complaining because I wouldn't run a Kickstarter so that they could make money, and I'm like, you can't even show up to do the work to fill out the assets needed for the Kickstarter. How are you gonna show up to make the game? Glory. In the military, that's what we call glory. When you get to basically sit there and say nobody else knew what it took. And I have no illusions, this thing is far from perfect. But, you know. An old warhorse. Broken old warhorse, what else am I gonna do? Do art and share it with people. Suck less. I know that there is potential in what I'm trying to build. I just gotta get it to a better state. Well, I know other games have tried to do the procedural mission stuff, you know? Like, I know Elite Dangerous has done procedural missions, but most of the time they're so freaking shallow. Like, oh, go over here and kill these guys. And I want to try and get away from that. I've got a little bit of that, but I want to try and get away from that as much as possible. It needs to feel like, you know, if I'm going to go out on a bounty hunt, I need the bounty hunt to feel like a hunt and not just like, oh, yeah, go over here and kill this dude or whatever. That exists in the game now. I need to get rid of it. Right. That's something else I need to do is get the background simulation running at a much. And I've got some ideas on how to get that done. Like there's a few areas where like some of the performance that's happening is because there's some like just some better decisions that I need to make under the hood. But yeah, the having like this always bothered me. Like when I was, that's what the audience hated about Starfield, and right, like, and it's always kind of bothered me about other open world games. Like, you play a game like Ghost Recon Wildlands, and sure, it feels like it's got stuff in it, but it feels more like a theme park. Like I played WoW recently for the first time ever. I'd never played WoW. Definitely didn't play it during the early days. And like a couple years ago, I picked it up and played it, and I was like, man, this just doesn't feel very good. I don't even really understand like why anybody likes this. But a friend of mine explained to me like the biggest differences between old WoW and new WoW, and like how old WoW had much more like player immersion or player-driven immersion gameplay. And I just remember like playing WoW and thinking to myself like, it feels like a theme park. And then that's when somebody else was like, well, they call it a theme park MMO for a reason. I was like, oh, well, I would explain it. Like it feels like a freaking theme park. It doesn't feel like there's weight to my decisions. And I always had that problem with some of the other open world games I played. Like, I loved the old school Mercenaries, Playground of Destruction, and World in Flames games, but they always felt fairly shallow. And like, I appreciate the cinematic nature of curated, like handcrafted story missions to an extent, but there's some times where I just want to like exist in the world, man. Like, I just want to chill out, do the space mercenary thing, and just kind of like build my own adventure, like craft my own legend, so to speak. But these fighters are coming over here, and like, who is that? That's Paras de Fuego. Yeah, they got a habit of doing that. They are the only raider faction that I know of, or that has fighters right now. The Sons of Wardan do not have fighters currently, but they will eventually get gunships. This is something else that I want to do. I want faction, like, another thing that just absolutely drives me nuts, and Destiny did it horribly. Almost all of the new factions were just reskins of existing factions. So even if you were fighting something that looked different and maybe had a different projectile to its weapon, you were still essentially fighting the exact same AI no matter what you did. Maybe some of the movement parameters were tweaked, but there was no real difference in the behaviors. And in some cases there was a whole lot of difference between the NPCs. That's something I've kind of got going on here, but again, it's a thing that I want to get away from. And one of the ways I'm going to start doing that is with the air vehicle AI. And the Sons of Wardan, they're not going to get fighters, they're going to get they're gonna get gunships, and then when I get over to like some of the larger scale weapons, Sons of Wardan are gonna get ballistic missiles for even longer range stuff. They'll use the gunships for local harassment and basically send in escorts out with transports. But yeah. Yeah, that's something that's kind of like, because I'm mostly going to be working with human factions, because there aren't very many aliens in the Frontiers Reach universe. This is kind of playing off of the Dark Forest thing. Like when human beings came to this planet specifically, this moon, Frontiers Reach, they didn't even know there were aliens here. They had detected wildlife, and so they came because they thought there was wildlife here. The archetypes and factions are boring in popular games. Yeah, I completely agree. Especially like video games, and I'm probably gonna run some of that myself a little bit. I'm gonna try and break it up as much as possible. There's a lot of things that I'm trying to do differently with this game, which is another reason why it's probably been hard to find anybody to like invest in it, because so much of what I'm trying to do is like, it's either been done before and didn't go well, usually because money people got in the way, or somebody tried to do it, they failed miserably trying to do it, and like didn't even have a product to release. Looks like Titan Line Security is putting a landing craft down there. Assuming it doesn't get shot down. This is something that, like, I do this, and I'm gonna have to find a way to communicate this to somebody, but like, I do this because as like a military veteran, I'm just kind of like trained to do this. But this is what we call a map recon, or map reconnaissance. You literally just sit here and look at the map and try to like discern what the environment and lay of the land is. In this case, I have some idea of what the activity on the map is, so I can kind of like try to make an estimation about where I need to put my activity at. Archetypes and factions are popular in popular games. Something like Flat Earthers would be a fun faction. Yeah, we'll have to look at that. I have a planet that I want to work on, because I have ideas for multiple planets. In fact, since I got people here, we'll just go ahead and pull this up and we'll look at this. Boop. All right. So, because I'm paying for everything out of pocket, I can basically do whatever I want. Some people might find that a little arrogant, but I'm tired of looking at freaking AAA games basically cut corners, nickel and dime, and half-ass their way through things. So I'm gonna pay for a bunch of stuff. I'm also going to do a bunch of stuff, and we're gonna build a pretty fucking epic game here. Right? It's like, dude, I've had a couple brush-ins like that where I didn't make it to the big thing, but I almost, like, I've got some stories like that from when I was in the military, and maybe I'll share them one day, but there's some stuff I don't just openly talk about, because some of it's like, you know, it's so close. It's like, you know, do I really want to... The the rocket engineer flew out and then fell out or something. Don't remember, but it was funny. Yeah, it's. Oh yeah, I've never played Fallout New Vegas, and when I tried to finally go play it, it crashed all the time. Now, if we get the main story wrapped up in Frontiers Reach, we'll go look at other places. So in this case, and I'm just gonna go ahead and shut this down. We're off doing other things. In this case, we get all the story stuff wrapped up for Frontiers Reach proper, and the first chapter, the base game, Act 1, that's going to be free to play. So you won't have to pay anything to get access to that one. Nobody will. So. Well, they choose boring because that's what they know, right? Like, what. How. Like, this kind of goes back to what I was saying. Like, if most of your writing team is 20-year-olds, what's their reference material? Their reference materials high school, maybe college, childhood. Your best writers are probably going to be somebody in their 40, like 45 or older. Somebody who's suffered in life, as another writer put it. And if we get to a point to where we have more room to expand and we want to keep going in the Frontiers Reach universe, we'll do more planets. Well, that may be because like you can meet 20-year-olds who are interesting people. You can definitely meet 20-year-olds who are interesting people, but like uh, I'll just give you an example. When I was in college, I spent a lot of time around uh, 18 to 22-year-olds who they were so sheltered by their parents. Like most of them just didn't really have a functioning model of understanding of what the real world is like. Like it was very strange to me as somebody who left home at 18 years old. Like I dropped out of high school, left home at 18, and like I was sleeping on people's couches and cleaning horse stalls. And like my at one point, all I got paid in cigarettes. So it just kind of depends on on how you're raised, I guess. Some people's parents don't let them do anything, and then their parents wonder why their kids are the way they are as adults. Not quite like that. Not quite like that. I eventually joined the military, but there was there was like a year and a half where I lived on a friend's couch. I eventually moved into a room, and I mowed their lawn, cleaned their horse stalls. I got paid in cigarettes. I did eventually move down to Arkansas and got a job working at a gas station, and then I worked construction for a while, and then I eventually joined the military, and then I got out and I worked at a machine shop for a while, warehouse, eventually went to game design school, got my degree in my bachelor's in computer animation and game design, and then got a job in the tech industry, and the rest is history. Let's see if I have any other stuff that I can just kind of throw up here while I'm running the stream here. What you want, kitty cat? Here we go. We'll dig up some old files. I've got some wacky videos in here as well. But let's look at this one. This is a lore video that I made for internal use. I don't know. I don't release stuff like this just willy-nilly. So you guys are getting a treat if you even showed up. This is AI. It's actually a mix of AI generated stuff. I do a mix. I'm literally watching AI get integrated into like professional grade creative software, like stuff that gets used in Hollywood movies. Yeah, I'm literally watching it get integrated into this stuff, and like, I'm not trying to like diss on anybody's moral framework for this, but like, if you want to work in this industry, you're gonna have to learn how to use some of these tools, and so I learned what I got to learn to stay competitive. But we'll check this out. We'll watch it once. Might move a little fast in some areas, so I'll warn you now. Right? If you predict anything accidentally right, you get mentioned in a history book. If you make money for your investor as a game dev, you still get shut down. Pretty much. Pretty much how it is. Let's see. Here's another little experiment. They were asking if you were around. We need to mute this one. So as you can probably tell, the I always try, like, anytime I'm doing stuff with AI, I'm always using the artwork that I and my team are putting together. And I've cleared it. Some stuff I've cleared with the team members, so I'm using it, and other stuff I haven't cleared it with them yet, and so I'm not using it in the workflow yet. Boss fight. This is the old boss fight. Yeah. This is like a low level boss fight. Try to make those interesting eventually. But anyways, let me call it for the night and hop off, and I'll probably definitely stream again eventually. Been fun. Just kind of getting a chance to chill out, chat. Here's looking to the future. Till next time.